Hey everybody, welcome to the Unreal Engine live stream where once again we told a bunch of jokes just before turning the camera on, so they're trying to hold in the giggles. So today we have a bunch of really awesome content about the match 3, Postmortem, and Postmortem, because after we released the Postmortem, we did even more things which aren't covered in the Postmortem. So we'll get to that though just after the news. Shelly, take it away. So first things first, it is finally coming up. GDC is just around the corner, and we will be having a whole bunch of members of our community come out. We'll be flying people out, people are going to be driving out, and we'll have tons of people at the booth. You can come to the blog posts and see the entire list of everyone that you can meet and all their games and all the fun information about them. I'm not going to go over everybody because it's actually quite a few people. But come over to our booth, see the people, see the game demos, shake hands. It's a great opportunity to meet all the people that you've actually probably met in chat. Actually, probably quite a few of them are in chat right now, so. All right. Next up, more Unreal Engine Marketplace content has come out. And I'm going to just throw this out here. I'm not going to even begin to list it because it goes a little something like this. It's just, you see, it's a lot.
I want to get that dinosaur.
You see that? Yeah. Oh, yeah, you see the dinosaur? It was pretty fancy. Look at that. This is a little raptor to chase you around. It's good. So the Velociraptor, you know. It just, as you can see, there was a massive one, as we like to do in our cans. Oh my gosh, just keeps going. That's right. Yep. So awesome work. I am going to have to give a lot of badges out, and if you haven't received your marketplace seller badge, it's because I'm still going through the massive list of all of the people that are getting badges. So give it a minute. Did you drop a thing? So just give me a moment and I will be updating everybody. All right. Next up, all aboard, Unreal Engine joins the train jam. Lauren, this is you.
Yes.
And also
Michael Nolan.
Michael Nolan. We will have both purple and blue hair available in 2 flavors at the train jam. It's basically we're sending our 2 anime characters to deal with this, and they're going to handle it. I love you guys in your train.
No, the train was like one of the best things of like, oh, I get to play with the train for the pictures.
Yeah, what was the story behind that? Like, whose train is that? It was just
Alex
Michael's.
brought it in, and yeah, Chance was like, let's do trains, and so now there's pictures of trains.
Different Alex.
But we should have
There's
put
another Alex?
It turns out that, yeah, we have more Alexes now, so.
Oh,
yeah, go for it.
alright.
Yeah, so if you're going to GDC via the train jam, you're gonna bump into these 2. They are going to have, let's see, you actually have flash drives with you in case you need documentation or engine, and you guys
A
see
bunch
that
of samples on there too.
yeah, because you know, internet's spotty on a train because they're, you know, trains. So yeah, come say hey to everybody. We're just really excited to have you 2 on there.
I know,
It's gonna be so
I'm
much
super
fun.
psyched.
This is your first one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's Michael's first too, or has he done these before?
It's his first train jam, but he's done it at like he did the global game.
Well, he game
jam.
jams a lot, yeah. So you've
He
got
does all the game jams.
yeah, you 2 will do just fine, I'm sure. All right. All right. The last thing in the news is that yes, Epic is going to have a booth at GDC 2016. You have to come by, and also we're going to be having lots of discussions, lots of games. We will have tons of things to show off and all this, and there will be tons, and I'm just going to, again, scroll through the list so you get the idea of how much is going on, but basically every day we either have partner content or our own developers going out talking about Unreal, developing with Unreal, developing games that were made on Unreal, etc., etc. And it's quite a lot. Come on to the Unreal Engine blog. You can see the full list and the details as far as what day and times and who's going to be doing what. And just come check it out. It's literally too much to list in one sitting. We have a little bit of a finite time today, so I can't. Oh my gosh, the list just keeps going. All right, and that's the bottom of the list. Come out and check it out. You know, I'm gonna. You're gonna be at GDC. I'll be at GDC. He's at GDC. A lot of people from Epic are gonna be there. So if you're there, come by, say hi, shake hands, change business cards and all that, and yeah, it's gonna be tons of fun.
It looks like some of the things are to be streamed too if you're not able to actually.
Yes,
make
we'll
it, so.
also be doing lots of streaming and a bunch of other things that are. Oh my gosh, we have a lot to do. I know Chance has been running around. You might also notice Chance, again, not able to join us, and that is because he is making sure that these things are going to go off and all the other things that are planned are going to go off without a hitch.
Chairs.
And yeah, we would have to get him like one of the little kiddie stools.
Lay down here.
Oh yeah, you know, just all sprawled and ready for his close-up.
First close up.
First close up.
Alrighty, that is it for the news. Next up is Community Spotlight. We're not going to cut quite yet because I'm going to start off by reading off the Answer Hub badge winners. Alright, this week's Answer Hub badge winners are Phobos, who really dominated at first place with 325 karma. Shadow River and Luos, you two are repeat winners, but I think Phobos is new, and he really blew everyone out of the water there. Now, if you're trying to get your Answer Hub Sage badge, you got some competition. You got to get into the Answer Hub and start answering more stuff. It's it's pretty intense right now with all the people competing for these weekly badges. But next week, good luck to you. How about that? Right. Cut to main screen.
Say please.
Please, Shelly, you're really the best.
Be nice.
Oh,
And you get a
oh,
lizard
that
hand.
was cool. All right, I can see why I had to say please for the good transition. So first up, and we didn't do a community spotlight last week due to the game jam, but this would have been there. M House, who has been making tutorials for quite some time now, and has actually been making these really great, simple kind of, some are mini games, some are kind of game types that you've seen before in other places, but really good tutorials, template projects, etc. They're over here on the forums under learning templates, but you'll see from all these amazing GIFs that here's a first to third person template, here's, you know, Space Invaders, etc. They're just so fantastic, and he just went through and updated to 4.10, so they're available for you. Come on to the forums, check these out. They are really excellent learning resources and just good starting points for when you want to make a game and you know it's going to be of a certain genre. So, excellent work, M-House. We'll be getting you a badge soon. And next up is actually, this is actually M-House's YouTube channel, which I also wanted to highlight has a lot of those example projects. He actually shows them off, breaks them down a little bit, talks about little plugins and little bits that he made, and has some small tutorials, but it's mostly where he talks about the templates and gives you a better idea of how to use them. So definitely check out the YouTube channel to go with it. All right. And next up is another YouTube channel, Cody Minot, who Nanovoxel? Shoot, I'm trying to remember the proper name. Yeah, no, that was right. It was Nanovoxel. Yeah, Cody is Nanovoxel on our forums, and just put out a radial panner material effects tutorial. I'm not gonna play the whole thing or whatever, but you get the idea. There's a brand new tutorial that he's put out. But what kind of drew me to the entire YouTube channel was you actually can see a series of progression videos as he's making these footsteps, and there's like a wide variety of footsteps and the way that they interact with stuff. It's just a great channel to see a new developer or a kind of starting developer in UE4 grow, learn, and build over time. And I really love to find these and see how someone has posted just tons of video of them stumbling and then learning and stumbling and learning. So really excellent channel there. Now we have a video for this. This is Monica's apartment from Friends. Steven C94 posted this in a few different of our channels, and I had a few different people actually send this to me. Like, did you see this? This is so cool. Like, Shirley can kick off that cool video, please. Thank you. I like how they threw in all the 3D and like game magazines, because clearly Monica would be really into that if you watched Friends. She's totally.
And tuna. So much tuna.
The primordial soup. I actually recognize that soup pack might be like a pack item or something. But it's very nice, colorful ArcViz, lots of depth of field.
Oh, I love pictures on there. Yeah.
Yep, if you grew up in the '90s or loved '90s TV, this is definitely the ArcViz project for you. Kind of makes you want to like have blue walls. It's a nice shade of blue, but then it's like, doesn't that kind of clash with the green? Maybe I'm being
No. Well, yeah, no.
It's not that it looks. It's just that her interior decorating choices I wouldn't agree with. That's just me.
That's cool. You get to see it from different perspectives than in the show because you always get like the one camera
Yeah.
angle, so the steering through the hallways and stuff.
Well, it's because that other wall doesn't even exist. So
Yeah, there's no wall behind her.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. So definitely check out Monica's apartment from Friends in UE4. Very, very cool little arc viz. And
Why do they?
there we go.
Yes, why?
Yeah, the ad that wasn't there before. So I wanted to throw this one out here. Normally I don't talk about things that are for sale in other places, but I wanted to throw out, this is from Sathish. He just put out his Unreal Engine 4 Game Development Essentials book, and it's actually really impressive that I was just kind of thrown off that like this showed up and it's great and it's really cool learning resource. I'd recommend it. And if you know Ryan John, that's Sathish if you know him off of the forums. But yeah, great stuff. There's only a few people that seem to write actual books for the engine, and it's like Katatis and a few other people. But now we have yet another publisher out of our community. And so if you are in our community and you're publishing actual books, hit me up on the forums via PM, what have you. I'd like to show that off because I do get a lot of requests for where can I get a physical book, because people still want to learn from a physical book.
Oh, I still remember the user who printed out all of the documentation. It was like
It's
to build a
boom!
board out of paper.
you could totally build a fort out of it. Yeah. That was pretty impressive to have someone print out all the docs. Oh man, but yeah, excellent work, Sathish. Really great. Whoa, you are just breaking out all the good transitions. Look at you. That is some fancy.
Oh, look at that.
Okay.
Oh, is it?
I'm gonna give you the driving stick back there. All right, cool. All right.
Driving stick?
Sure,
driving stick.
that's whatever.
Really?
That's what you drive.
I English good. I have the best words. All right.
Fair enough.
So, for Unreal Match 3, we had a lot of things that we learned while we were doing the version that we've released on 4.10. And then we actually took a lot of things that we wanted to get into the first version but couldn't, or things we got from user feedback, or the UX feedback that we're going to talk about in a little bit, and are working on the 4.11 version. So this is actually what I've got pulled up now, a little bit of a sneak peek. If you see any rough edges, it is sort of the work in progress from our desks of yesterday. So bear with us if you see anything like that. But I wanted to go through some of the postmortem. We originally had a blog post about it, I think right around the holidays, of things we learned. I think I talked to everybody on the team, from the people who did art to the people who did music and the code and things like that, to figure out, what we did learn from making this project. And I wanted to go through some of the things that didn't either make it into the post or a little bit more detail. So things like, for me, one of the things that I learned was how much it actually goes into that last 10%, right? We're like, okay, we've got, the deadline.
The first
and
90's easy.
It's the other 90. Yeah.
Yeah.
the 90 is the tricky part, right? Okay, so you're getting ready to upload. Did you take all your screenshots for the store? Are they all the right resolutions because you've got a number of different devices?
Why is the UI scaling inappropriately? Who changed the UI scaling? It was probably me.
Localization was a big thing for me because actually Match 3 is localized into Japanese, into simplified Chinese, and into Korean, and that changed things about the UI.
It obliterated the UI.
We had, sort of clever, jokey names for the leaderboards and achievements, and some of them translated well and some of them didn't.
Some
so
of
they
them really
actually,
didn't.
yeah. So some of them were actually, they would translate differently, but they were localized by the different offices. And things like that were, only after having done that did we learn that, okay, next time, as we're working on this new version, we've got new UI strings, so we have to make sure those all get localized and imported, and it's a little bit smoother the second time around.
And also making sure that they're not strings.
Right. Oh, that's a big one. You want to?
Yep.
Yeah. So one of the big things we ran into was it was either Korean or Japanese. We had a chunk of F text that was just simply the entire title, Unreal Match 3, which translates into a string about this long, and it doesn't wrap well. So we were using scale boxes within UMG, and so we would just cram it down to about this big, but the text would be about that small. So what you can do, though, is since F text is, how do you say, it's copied in memory. It's if you have a single word in an ftext variable, say it's just match, all of them that are the same
We'll get pulled in.
just get
yeah.
pulled in from that one location, from that one source of memory. So you only have to, one, localize it once, and two, you don't waste extra memory on all these strings that say the same thing across the board. So what we ended up doing was there's two variables, one that stores match and or unreal, and the other one that stores match 3.
Right.
And we add them together, just pin them to each other within Blueprint. But when you go to translate it, you get unreal and then match 3, which then you can actually wrap because they're two different words when they're translated individually. And it ends up looking a lot better. But it's things like we're down to the line and the UI is just not working. And so we learned really quick at the very end about all these things.
Yeah, and using ftext to localize though meant that it did get pulled in when we used the localization dashboard, and it was much easier to make sure that, actually, the localization I pulled up on the other monitor, thanks, you can pull it up. There's the localization dashboard that's actually under the editor settings experimental, and I know that Joe Conley has a forum post about how to use the experimental localization dashboard, which I'd have to restart the editor to show, but it made it a lot smoother.
Yep.
And I know that we're going to have documentation planned, for later on about how to use this as it starts to roll out of experimental, because it really made it much smoother to just run a gather and not have to deal with the commandlets. So if you want to give that a try, you can just enable the experimental feature and use the blog or the forum post to just kind of follow along.
Yeah, not saying it's easy or anything, but much better than running the command lines.
Right, and you can sort of see which strings were localized and which weren't. So like when I added a name to the credits, I could just sort of copy it over without having to send the whole file out again.
Yeah, it gives you a nice little percentage thing at the bottom, right?
Right,
Like for
yeah.
your targeted languages.
Let's see. Speaking of things that we found, the localization pipeline, I think there were some changes to the engine based on sort of stumbling blocks that I found as I was using it. I was like, oh, there's some strings that are being pulled in and maybe shouldn't be, so that got rolled into 4.10, like the 4.10.1 hotfix, I think. Same with some of the mobile development or even your gameplay statics function.
Yep, that one happened. So talk about that for a minute. We found there was a function we wanted. I think it was to find the name of the current level.
Right.
Was that it? Yeah, that was it. And people had been doing this. I think we saw that people had been doing this in a couple of cases. People on the forums had written their own functions for it, and it was a fairly simple thing to do. But it seemed like the kind of thing that you would want to have an engine function for. It seemed like the kind of thing where you could just say, engine, what's the name of the level that I'm in right now? Just
That would make sense.
Instead of having to write a whole, a whole like 5-line function. So we wrote a little 5-line function and made it and put it in our Blueprint static library within our project. But it seemed like it belonged in the engine, so we also wrote it into the engine. For our first release, though, I don't think that version of the engine had come out yet.
Right.
So we used our own. So if you have our early version, you'll see that code in there. And then in a later version...
So when we're going to release, later on, it'll be using the gameplay statics.
Yep, we just removed the function and now we're using the engine one. So it was kind of just a neat thing where we discovered that something would be a useful feature not just for us. So we just put it in there and now it's available for everyone.
No more typoing level names if you just want to get your current level name.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you mentioned some of the device scaling, Ian, but one of the points I have here highlighted in our notes is test early and often, because...
Yep, and on all your devices. It can be... So since we were releasing across both Android and iOS, we ended up having to test on all of those devices, right? That makes sense. Like, iOS is pretty simple. You have a very limited ecosystem. It's really nice.
Even the
Android...
Retina ended up giving us some things we had to tweak.
Right, yeah, a ton of stuff we had to tweak. I mean, when we started testing on Android, though, is when things got really interesting. Well, I mean, when we started testing the Game Center and Google Play services, that's when things got interesting and finding, certain things were not functional within the engine. And also things that we had decided to implement with achievements were simply not going to work because we were attempting to be cross-platform. Actually, so next week, Tuesday, we'll be talking more on some of the stuff that came up with achievements. But needless to say, it was just Google Play stores a float for percentage of an achievement. Game Center stores a 1 to 100 integer. So you can't, things break down pretty quick if you try to make an assumption about authority.
Or things like testing online.
Testing online, Yeah,
online
getting
on Wi-Fi, testing online then offline.
yeah, online when you're on Wi-Fi, online when you're on cell service, online when you're not online, and it's assuming you're online because you connected, but then you disconnected from the internet, and then having all of those things break in individual fashions, and then also because we like device profiles that have their own individual scaling, that's a scaling factor. So for user interface, you have 3 locations you can scale, 4 locations. One of them is device.
Right.
We have a device profile. You can be like, yeah, scale this by about 0.5. Another one is the UI
Resolution.
scale, which is based off of your resolution. You can set up your custom rule. And then you can do it based off of a scale widget or size widget within UMG. All of those interact in very funny ways depending on which one is executed first. And so what we ended up learning was kind of try to stick with one.
We just sort of we fixed our DPI scaling curve and then
Yep.
tweaked everything around that, so we weren't
Yep.
changing 3 variables.
And then we threw the device kind of stuff. Like we were trying to do this per device thing, but then Android kind of just said, hey, here's a wrench, and throw it into all your gears. There are just too many devices. I mean, I think we're automatically testing 11,000 something devices right now using Google Play. They have a function, they just push button receive testing. And there's 11,000 different Google devices, and we don't support nearly that many. We can't. I mean, we're talking about ones with screens that are this big, right? Like, there's nothing on there. But we do test them, and we get back automated results from them. It's valuable, but also, oh man.
Well, part of it is we wanted to see how, what range of devices we could show, because it is a
Yeah.
2D game. It is,
What's our bottom line now?
I think the S3.
Are we still using the S3 as the
and
bottom
then
line?
the 4S on iOS.
Yep.
But being able to, see what we could do, we have all sorts of LODs on the particles, on, we thought about even doing a static version where on the lowest end devices, she doesn't animate during gameplay, or she animates maybe with the flipbook instead. And there's just things we still might try, because we want this to be like a living, breathing, growing project. And
Right. Wait, where's profiling?
oh, profiling in a little bit.
Okay, all right, 'cause that's segue. Come on, that was a great segue. Let's do this.
Well, your online-offline thing, though, was the security versus usability came up.
Yeah, security versus usability. So, I guess I'm more of a hardline case for that, where I'm just like, no, we will not save anything locally, because if we save it locally, people can just mess with it. If they're gonna mess with it, I want them to try, right? I want them to have to intercept streams or edit the program like something. I want it to be difficult to do, because what we ran into was Tappy Chicken. Is if you go look at the scoreboards for Tappy Chicken, they're max int across the board. People have apparently gotten 2 billion something, past 2 billion polls. And
I can't even get past the first one.
and there's multiple people who have done this, right? And I'm pretty sure nobody's actually done this.
Yes.
I mean, somebody can.
Time since it
think
came
it would-
out.
Well,
versus
yeah, that's the thing
getting
I was
past
thinking.
the
Like,
1 billion polls.
think 10 billion or 2 billion polls. How long it takes to get from one poll to the next, multiply that out, and see if there's enough time from 2 years ago to actually get to today. All right, I don't think you can do it.
No.
Right. Whereas I was always making the argument of but I want to be able to play on an airplane.
Play on an airplane and things like that. So we came up with sort of I ended up caving, because it's like, you know what, it's a learning sample, and people are going to write stuff to your memory on your device, and that's going to be okay. And since it's a learning sample, we're actually not going above and beyond for encryption on that file. Like, the save files are flat text, so there's nothing we can do there. Well, there is, but Richard would have to dive in and go I'm going to go implement the encryption library.
Code, we can talk about some
Yeah,
of that too.
he would have to go through and modify.
Oh, we're gonna go look at that now.
Yeah, we can go look at that here right now. And so
Where are my codes?
we did a sort of a midline where it's like, I will accept authority from a higher score. Well, no, let me stop. In 410, actually, it's broken, and we will not accept authority from a local score. What happens is you have to beat your high score before we check to upload another high score.
Yeah.
So if you cheat yourself up to 2 billion in a high score, you have to get 2 billion in one naturally or live before it'll actually update. So,
But that's a bug. And
yeah, that was a bug. That was actually not intentional.
Although it's great, I mean, it works.
I mean,
you really
It is
can't
super
cheat this.
secure.
You have to have gotten a better score than
you
that.
have to get a better score because the only time we check the
So-
upload scores is at that point
You
when
have
you
to-
beat your high score.
Yeah, you have to write
Locally.
that right into memory. So
So instead of that, what happens now is that every time you get a high score, you have to play once, but every time you play, like it will say which one is higher and it'll upload that one. So your local version or your just one version will be uploaded to the board. Mainly because it doesn't matter. The high score boards on both Game Center and Google Play accept, like you can just hit them. You can just be like, hey, here's 1,000. Is it better than what I had? And they'll be like, no. And they won't add it. So it's not like you're erasing your high score with a lower score.
Right.
So might as well just spam them and deal with it later. And so on Richard's side, we could have used like a blueprint save game file and all of this stuff. They're kind of a pain to use. So what actually Richard ended up doing was writing a custom load save integer string deal for blueprint and then dumping that all into our save game file. And did you make this so I think at the very end you made it so that it was
These transitions are killer, by the way.
Thank you, Sean.
a per user.
Applicable, so yeah.
They ended up being per user, right? Or did we not get
What?
that in? I
no,
don't
no,
remember.
we did. The per user thing, we had a bug with just Google's API where it was returning blank usernames. But
Yeah.
the per user thing worked, and then once we figured out what was going on there, it worked for all platforms. But it always worked on iOS, and I think there was something weird with Steam as well. But again, that works now. Yeah. So
Well,
that
we're not
all
really.
works.
We're not on Steam, but it's all a part of the same
We tested it with Steam.
saving loading profile thing,
I
right?
don't know why we did that.
But yeah, the whole thing was having C++ handle the, like, this is when we save. I am the authority on saving, and then Blueprint saying, I care about this, whether or not sound is currently playing
Yep.
variable. And as the programmer, we didn't have to care about,
No.
what those variables were. We just said, save everything that the designers have asked us to save
Yep.
when we save it.
The other nice thing about that too is that then I don't have to know what's being saved. I don't have to be called in when someone wants to add a field or anything like that. You just write a system that works, and that's it. We only needed to save int32s as it happened. So
But throughout development, we increased and decreased those. So even you say as a programmer you wouldn't have to do this. As a blueprint designer on my end, I would have to go modify the struct for a blueprint save game every time I wanted to add something, which could lead to additional going back through, finding all my pins, load, save, all that stuff, and handling it comparatively to, here's a node, it writes an int with the name, and you're done.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can pull it by the name from the file, and you're done.
And I think the save even handled that little tiny bit of encryption that we did for things
Yep.
like the in-app purchase.
Yep. Yeah, because of the name of the purchase itself is crazy.
So let's see. I forget where this is called from, but there's an exposed blueprint function. I thought it was in our.
It's in the game instance.
Oh, it's in the instance. That's
Global,
right. It's
I
not
mean,
in the.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here it is. Right. So we basically just expose these things to Blueprint, put it in its own little category. It's pretty easy to find. Like I said, every variable we were working with happened to be an int32, so that just meant that we didn't have to write extra versions. For people who want to be optimal about this F string right here should actually be an F name. They compare faster, and like Ian was saying about F text, they use shared memory. So if you have two F names that are the same string, case insensitive, they will both have an ID number, and the actual string itself will be in one place that they both reference. So it's better, and that also makes the comparison faster because you can just see, do you have the same ID number? Yes, done. Strings are really there for when you're manipulating strings, but we did this because we just wanted it to be simple. All the strings are just called F string. We wanted it to be easy to learn because we were more focused on how to do mobile stuff rather than the C++. And incidentally, this should be a const F name reference if you really want to, go into the
The
C++
most
of
optimal,
it.
yes.
Yeah, I mean that's really what that should be. But it's okay. I mean this works just fine, and the performance bottleneck for this application isn't this, so we're okay with that. It's pretty straightforward what it does. I'm just calling a function in another place. So let's go there. All right.
Oh, by the way, what are you hitting to do that?
Oh, I'm hitting F12 to do that.
Okay.
That's a built-in key in Visual Studio.
Always learning.
Yep. So everybody has that button. It's their IntelliSense thing. All right, so we can do basically 3 functions. You can say, what is the value of field XYZ? Or you can say, set the value of field XYZ to whatever I'm about to tell you. Or you can say, we no longer need field XYZ, get rid of it. So that's pretty straightforward. And it's just a simple map where you just look up by the string and you get the int value, and there you go, there's your save data. The sort of things that we care about are this stuff, your high scores for gold, silver, and bronze medals, and then your personal best score, whatever that is. Again, this score does not have to be the best score on the list. It's your personal best. So we have that.
And I think we used the same system to save out things like your settings,
Yep.
and whether or not you used your net or bought the in-app purchase, what level was the last one you played,
Yep.
things like that. So,
Because I believe, the bools can be saved as a 0 or 1, so
Yes.
easy.
Yep, Bulls. We just did 0 and 1. That was no trouble. You can see the code for this, since you don't have to write how TMAP works. The code is pretty dead simple. Let's see, what else is there to say? Oh yeah, and of course it inherits from the save game. So the whole act of saving the game and all of that. That's pretty much already handled. Unreal already has a class for that, so you can just kind of customize your own save game field. I put in these functions to make it easier, and there you go. Just saves the property.
Yep. Dump it all on me and left all the logic up for me in Blueprint on what I was saving and when I was saving it.
Oh, and this, just a quick thing. This we made originally because we were thinking about, so that structure again is the scores, the gold, silver, bronze, and top. So at first we were thinking we were going to have possibly multiple levels, maybe an arena that has a different shape or something, so it's kind of weird to make your matches around like these corner pieces that never move, or something like that, maybe a narrow level. I don't know. We were thinking about doing that. We didn't actually do it, but originally, since we thought we were going to have multiple levels worth of saved data, of course each level needs its own medal scores and all that, so that's what this structure here is for. There's only ever 1 entry in this.
Yep.
But if we did want to add more, or if you want to add more, pretend I'm pointing at you. You can't see me, but I'm pointing at you. If you want to add
There you
more,
go.
there it is. Then you could really pretty easily do that.
Yeah.
We accommodate that, and it would be minimal coding to do that.
yeah, there were a lot of things that, where we had to make the call of, hey, it's a learning resource versus the full encryption, the number of levels.
Oh man, the arguments. So many great arguments.
But I do-
Gnashing of teeth.
But I do think we definitely try to keep in mind, like, what you would really still keep in C++ versus in
Yeah.
Blueprints, what would go in the game instance versus the game mode. So for both framework and then that C++ Blueprint script, I mean, for a team that had, 2 people programming and then 2 or 3 people doing Blueprint script depending on the day, we sort of ended up with that 50-50 split.
Yeah, and almost always just for people who are somewhat new to game development, thinking of awesome features is really easy, but actually making awesome features and then having them turn out to be awesome features is really hard and really time consuming, and have them not wreck other features really hard, really time consuming.
Yeah.
So downscoping is almost always the right idea. Just reduce the scope of your game. It won't reduce the quality. It'll make the few things that your game does into really good things instead of a lot of things that are really not fun and sort of step on each other's toes. Reduce, reduce, reduce. If your game does well and you do a sequel, add a couple new things into it. Add your favorite, 1 or 2 things,
Yeah.
not 5.
Yeah.
Your favorite 1 or 2 things.
We kept it nice and simple for this one around.
Yeah.
And-
Well, because we started from, like, the tutorial background, I don't even think we started with, like, a game design doc. But if I
No.
were to go back to last April, I would have made sure there was one, because things like how we decided to score the game changed, I think, a month before we put it
And
out.
the trophies
oh, yeah,
associated
the
with
trophy.
scoring,
Yeah, we used to have
that
like
changed.
we used to have it so that you had a gold, silver, and bronze score, and those would be set to whatever you used to beat them. But we have an achievements. We have achievements based on how many bronze, silver, and gold medals you get. What ends up happening, though, is if you keep setting those scores, you keep on having to push up those values. So what happens if you set up a system where you push your gold to your silver when you beat your gold? Well, you don't get another silver medal for that, because that's not a part of the achievement. You didn't earn a silver medal. What happened was your gold got pushed down there. Well, now you have to beat lower than your new gold, higher than your old gold, which is now silver, to get another silver medal. And so if you start just playing the game hardcore, like you're just, I'm good, and you're just playing it, you will maybe get nothing but gold medals, but you will eventually get nothing but gold or will lose.
Right.
So you cannot achieve your bronze or your silver gold or medals achievements
Unless
you gain the system.
Right.
So go for nothing but the lowest, nothing but the lowest, nothing but the lowest, until finally you push it up to silver. And you get those 10, 20... I had it at one time get 1,000 bronze medals or something like that. It's like, you can't do that.
So, yeah, not only, it's just if you get 3 really great scores right up front, you've pretty much just ruined yourself for that medal.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're not going to... But more importantly, that's not at all fun.
No.
Like, the process that was just described there
Yeah,
is
well, when you
about
start
as fun to
gaming-
do as it sounds, except
Yeah.
it takes longer.
Yeah, so instead of doing that, we went to a system where it's like, yeah, we show what it takes to get a bronze, silver, or gold medal for that level, but what's going on behind the scenes is that only every 2,500 or 25,000 points, you just get bonus time.
Right.
That's really the only thing that's being tracked. Do we save gold, silver, bronze scores for a per map basis so that we can compare against to give you a medal? Absolutely. But you only have to beat, what is 150,000?
Actually, even to win, you just beat 25,000.
To win, you hit 25,000 for bronze. And that gives you a medal. Keeps you above the failure point. I think gold's like 150. That's all you ever have to hit.
Right.
And getting 150 is pretty simple. Well, depending on device.
Yeah.
So it was just things like that where, making the balance of, it's a learning resource versus it's, still want to be fun gameplay. And I think we ended up with something that some
It
people
walks the
might
line.
be super addicted to.
Yeah, we have a few people that are. I mean, it's free. It's a match 3 game, and if we started adding additional levels, or perhaps a mixer of some sort to it, then I think it could be slightly more addictive. So I don't know.
But one of the things that did come back from the feedback, because we get all the comments on the stores and things like that, is people who came to it not knowing that it was a learning resource. They said, "Oh, this is a game," and they saw it's only one level and not a whole lot of progression, and
This seems really basic. I mean,
so
Or the inverse of that, which is, how does this teach me Unreal?
Right.
Because there's nothing in the game that actually teaches you Unreal.
yeah, you have to go get the sample from the Learn tab, things like that. And so it's like, how do we clarify that? And so we turned to our super awesome UX team, who did a whole UX report on it actually after release. And speaking of things that you would do if you were developing this for a quote-unquote real release, do this part before you release. If you do UX feedback, it's always super helpful, but I think we did it after the fact so we could sort of show before and after the changes we made.
Actually, to plug somebody else's book, but we have it around. It's Don't Make Me Think. Great little book for UX feedback. The guy talks about, like, you don't need a full UX team to do a UX report. Get 5 of your friends and have no experience with what you've made. Put them down in front of it and watch them. Listen to them. See how they struggle. Have them talk about what they're trying to do, which is really what's going on with our UX team. It's just they have time and resources and video cameras down there where they can record everything and then write up a huge report later. Whereas if you're doing this solo or in a small group, take it down to the grocery store and see if you can get people to play with it, while they're going in, kind of deal,
And
right?
take notes.
And just take notes.
Because we had the really great report drawn up, but also, I'd watch somebody play it just around, just kind of like put it on their phone and like, oh yeah, that is confusing. All right, make a note on my phone of something to go back and
Especially like the top 2 buttons. Like, what are these? The documentation and the heart button. What do these do?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard thing, but I would say, everyone knows that UX means user experience, I hope.
Oh, actually, yeah.
But you do now.
It means user experience.
But
important.
a couple things if you're just totally doing it on your own for user experience that I found, this just sort of echoes what's been said a little bit, is if you can give someone your game and have it record, like with Fraps or with whatever kind of full screen recording software, and just walk away and then come back later, that's great, because then you're not there, they're playing the game. It's a lot more natural because you're not standing right behind them. And then the second thing is, if you are going to stand right behind them, if you don't have that set up, don't answer any questions. Don't give
talk.
any advice. Just here, play this game like you just normally would. I'm not here.
Yeah.
Don't ask me questions, because the second you tell them, oh, you got to press this and this to do this. Here, hold on. Let me help you.
Yeah,
Nope.
that-
You've
that-
just
failed.
invalidated the
means that
test.
It was bad. Yeah.
You failed.
Yeah, one, that means they didn't get it, and two, the rest of the test is now invalid.
Right.
And if you had to do that, it probably means nope.
Okay, so with our test, they wrote up the methodology for us. They just let 4 people who didn't have any experience with the application play it and think out loud, and they played it freely for a little while, and then sort of answered some UX questions about it based on things that we'd sent to the team about how did they know if it's a learning resource, how do they feel about the game, things like that.
Yeah, we have the benefit of actually having a full UX team for all this kind of stuff. But yeah, like they were saying, it's pretty easy to grab a friend. And I'm going to drop a link into chat, but we actually have a place where you can sign up on our website to be a part of our UX stuff and be kind of our random participants. So if you're interested in helping out Epic Games with our UX testing, I'm going to drop that in right now.
Yeah.
Put it in the YouTube archive.
So one of the things that was like our highest priority was that after playing the game 15 or 20 minutes, people didn't know it was a learning resource. They just thought it was a game. And
A very limited game.
right. And let me pull over our mock-ups really quick. So if you notice, like here, it says Unreal Engine Learning Resource on the main screen, but you're only on the screen for the very first part of gameplay. Once you get to the main menu, there's nothing saying that you're on.
And your memory's already dumped it.
Right. So things like that are obviously why they were sort of noticing that happening. A lot of things that came up were about the buttons. This little U logo was not clear that it was for documentation, because we actually linked to the docs for Unreal Match 3 inside the app, so you can go read about all the UI scaling, read about the leaderboards, all that, and how we set them up.
Yep.
But it wasn't clear to people, so when they clicked, they didn't necessarily know that that was where it was going to take them. And so that was, it's actually a very in-depth report for, 4 people playing a very, simple Match 3 game, but it's got all sorts of recommendations, things like force feedback made people think that it was about feedback to us about the game.
Yeah, you're gonna make my phone send feedback to you or
right.
something
And
like that.
when thinking about it, I was like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense when you're not,
Yep,
in
because
there
force
with the actual
feedback
setting.
isn't used often. Well, it is, but it's not in this context.
It's
Right.
the developer term. I don't think they call it Rumble or
Rumble.
Like
Yeah.
nobody calls
Yeah.
it that to consumers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had this really awesome in-depth report, and we ended up breaking this into a Trello board. Again, lots of sneak peeks behind the scenes here. I was trying to categorize, what is about the message, what is about fixing the UI icon, the UI iconography, and what's the game level polish, because again, trying to keep the scope small and not feature creep. We actually didn't do most of this game level polish in this pass because we were focusing on making it a smoother experience for users, making sure they knew what buttons we're going to do, and making it very clear that it's this learning sample.
Reducing the interface.
Right.
Merging things down. Cleaning it up.
But Matt from the user experience team had some really good recommendations about how we could change those sort of thing around. And so we actually came up with, I have the mock-up slides right here. These are my amazing PowerPoint mock-ups of what the new UI was going to look like. So we actually took a lot of the buttons that are on that main screen originally, which you can sort of see here. There's these 6 buttons. Normally all 6 would show up if you're on a phone, but I took my PC, and put them all under a menu, which you could open from this menu button. And that's things like options, documentation, and putting the text there made it very clear. If you click this button, it's going to take you to this setting. And then we're also going to make sure that that menu was accessible more often, from the windscreen, things like that. So,
Also allows us to reuse the UMG widgets for it.
right.
So they're the same across the board, and since we built them out in that fashion, why not?
Yeah, the menu is reused a couple places. The options menu, I think we pull up both either in the game and on the main screen.
Yep.
So again, this is a little bit of a sneak peek behind the scenes of the next version of Unreal Match 3, and it's in development mode, so you can see the logging messages there, which is the other thing that I think we learned a lot about, is tons of debug messages everywhere.
Yep. And how to make those show not only on device, but actually get logs of them correctly off of your device. So that way you can do it live and get usable feedback from your device.
Yeah.
Because the only reason we found out that we weren't communicating with Google Play was a ton of logging info and dumping that out. And then also Chris Babcock, one of our platform guys, was going into code and putting in real callbacks and real information for us to see that, yep, no, we're getting feedback, but we're just setting something to false
Right,
when
and
it should be true.
making a development build so you actually get those log messages and not just only testing shipping. Obviously, you
But
want to
also,
test.
but also doing a development for distribution so that you can actually connect to the store, which Unreal doesn't allow you to do out of the box. You have to do it through a batch file. So, but I think that's fixed in 4.11. I think you can actually do for development, for distribution, and it not automatically switch to shipping on you. So,
But things like that where, you want to test a shipping build because there may be some differences, but development is where you get all your log messages, things like that. So
anyway, let's push play on that thing.
Yes.
And then super simple.
So now, rather than having a store that you pull up, you actually can just flip back and forth right here. If this was actually on the device, I could purchase this and all of a sudden have the night theme, which is the same level, so we didn't have to make another match 3 level save data, but it just reskins with the different night and the different gems. Actually, even I think crickets on the soundtrack. But it's very clear we wanted to reduce the number of UI elements that they had to decide between clicking on, just play or how to play or new level. And then here's that menu that was from the mock-up. So again, credits, settings, documentation. Actually, even changed the icon for documentation to a book to make it a little bit clearer that that's what we were going to do.
We also had UX feedback that we had parallelogram buttons and circular buttons and square buttons, and unify that, please.
Yes.
So we went with square, and then we had some of Matt and Tim up in, they're part of engine user support, go and create more unified button styles, and trying to keep them the same size, which apparently I failed right here.
Oh, this is just the other one button, but the one thing here was that I think before we had a floating panel behind the buttons. So again, trying to reduce the noise of this button is nested in this other panel, and it's just background and button, and that's all we had to worry about. Then when you play, up in the same place, so that you're always thinking to look to the top left, you can switch to the options, which is the same menu, and unified the buttons there.
Yep.
So.
I'm just kind of waiting for you to win the round. And keep going. No, don't end.
I should. Oh, okay.
You have to win one.
Oh no! Wait.
Oh.
There we go. And yeah, again, a work in progress. We want to put a little spark on that bomb and tweak some things there. A little bit of art switching around, but we really tried to keep, for the most part, aside from adding clarity.
You're looking for combos. You're looking for combos.
No, I'm looking at the 150,000 gold medal and how it's cut off on the edge.
You're gonna go back and fix that, aren't you? But it really is just trying to work on clarifying things. Using these metals as opposed to the metals we had before. Try to highlight that it's gold, silver, and bronze by making the metal the largest focus.
Yeah, people, when they looked at the previous medals, they saw ribbons.
Right.
And not the metal themselves, and the ribbons were pretty much the same.
I'm probably not going to get a bonus.
Why are we playing?
I know.
Because it's fun.
I'm going to go
That's
pull
the
the end
problem.
menu.
You start playing though.
And then it's,
We gotta get the bomb bonus to show them what the bomb thing looks like when you.
Oh, how
When
could
they
we
flash?
not? It would not be a good stream.
Yeah, that would be
Oh,
very important.
it's not going to happen in time.
Oh,
I do want to show the end game because that was another thing that we changed based on the UX feedback. So it's actually on purpose that I'm not prolonging the game and not because I didn't see any matches. So again, before we had these. Let me pull up the.
You need Alt tab out. Your mouse is locked in the window.
There we go.
There we go.
Before we had.
Scroll up.
Oh, there we go. Actually, I don't think I put that screenshot. But underneath the end game, there were a lot of floating buttons, and we tried to streamline that so it is just back your leaderboard and achievements, and then highlighting play again.
Yep.
So.
Cool.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the UX feedback and what we took from that too, and some things we didn't end up implementing. I think there was something about on the scoreboard here on the play, maybe aligning all of the scores that you had to beat with a kind of bar, like fill up like
yeah,
you've
like a
now gotten
progress
enough for the
bar.
progress bar, but because you could get a score as high as 1,000,000, that really wouldn't have probably scaled well depending on player skill. So we ended up saying, for the way that the game design is, we didn't. Ian's thinking about it now. I can
Nobody
tell.
even told me this was a form of
You
feedback.
could do a vertical bar
No,
next to it, and
you
then
would do 4 horizontal bars that fill up for each level, and so you hit the 25,000 mark, then it
There we
starts
go,
filling
there's
up
the
the
flashing
75,000 mark, then it starts filling up the 150,000 mark, and then your top score it's like 2 billion. Well, fine, it uses that as now you're filling up towards the 2 billion mark.
Oh, I was just thinking about vertically filling up next to the scores, and when you hit the goal, it tops out, and that's it. And then from there, it's just top score. Whatever.
No, I'd have to
Yeah,
go
that
through
was-
the top score.
That was kind of what I was thinking was what Richard was saying, because earlier I was like, well, just do like an upside down thermometer, like fills up to the top, and then you have like a thing at the end. It's just like, yeah, it just keeps going, but you've hit the goal or whatever.
Something with lots of particles.
Yeah, lots of like it sparks more particles and stuff, like
Yeah.
a sparkler.
Yes, let's completely trash the performance on our low end devices.
This
Oh,
is what
shush
game
you.
design is. We just discuss
It's,
cool
it's your
ideas
job to
and
make
then
it
we do
perform
them.
it, not mine. So.
It's actually not my job to do.
And actually, well, I think the last thing we'll get to is a little bit of the profiling things that we did do, because most of the changes that we made on the 4.11 version were for UI and user experience, but we did take a little bit of a look with the profiling tools to figure out where our performance hitches might be. And the 2 things that we changed were garbage collection rate and the base scene components.
And there was one other thing. We were double loading the level whenever you hit play. Because there was a function for on click and on press all feeding into play. So what would happen is you would load the level, but both of them are already on the stack. So then you would reload the level,
Well, that was
which
more
means you
fun.
destroy the previous level to reload the Yeah. But then profiling.
Yeah.
So you want to go into that?
Yeah,
As a fair warning, since we do have a cutoff time today, you've got about 8 minutes until that cutoff entirely.
Alright.
So
world's fastest
and
mentions of
we have
profiling.
we have a couple Q&A questions too.
Yeah.
So we may or may not be able to get to them. I might have to put them in the forum chat, and you might even cover them. What if 2 strings that are identical in English have different translations in another language? That was for localization.
Okay, yeah, that's happened before. And things like that have happened. I've certainly had cases where. Yeah, what am I talking about? Anyway, I've seen.
I'm a human being.
I could, but there are more over there.
That's a camera. That's like a robot on a stick. All right.
So sometimes you'll have things, or where you might have a word in English, but it's a verb and it's the same word as a noun, and in the foreign language that won't work, but in English you could use the same string twice. In our localization macro that we use, you have one string that says what this, it's like the identifier, like the tag, and then the next string that is the content. So if you have 2 strings that are identical in English, give them 2 different tags, and there won't be a problem. They'll just happen to have the same content in English. That's okay.
Cool. The other question that we had in is probably a pretty easy one to answer too. Why hold off on features till a sequel instead of just content patching down the line?
Well, you could. I mean, it depends. DLC is certainly a popular thing.
I think that you guys just didn't want it to become a living thing. You wanted to have like a definitive,
There's that.
this is what it is.
There was also this one time when this game Unreal came out,
What?
and then people thought, well, what if we make it like an arena shooter with bots? Let's make that an add-on. And then Mark said, no, that's a separate product. And Mark was right times a million.
to do Unreal Tournament is 2 different
that
things.
Unreal Tournament is in fact its own game and not a free download pack for Unreal. He was as right as you could possibly be about that one.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for
So we're making mobile Unreal is what you're getting.
You know, but also if you're
Half-Life Reconfirmed.
but also if you're
The-
if you're significantly enough changing a game, if you made Street Fighter and then you added 4 new characters to it, that's a new game. I mean, 1, that's a new game because that was a console title and you couldn't do that. But 2, it's a new game because if you're gonna introduce new core mechanics or a new way to do things, you've significantly changed the gameplay now, and the old game is still a valid old game that people might want to play. They don't necessarily want to change it.
Right, but at the same time, the what you're saying basically is that it's mostly a business choice. For us, our business was, in this case, our business for adding stuff down the line, it was, this is a learning sample. We will add these features in the, quote, sequel as we go, because 1, engine fixes are coming down the line that are going to make our lives easier. We're going to want to introduce new people to that. So we're making a, quote, business choice on what levels that we add based off of our goals. Now, if my goal is to have the definitive tournament edition of Street Fighter,
Right.
then absolutely, if I'm going to add four more characters to it that completely destroy the meta, then do I make that a DLC for it? Or do I make it a whole other product so that we can separate it out when we get towards...
Right, like a lot of
well,
our
and let's
changes were
go-
not about
Yeah.
going from 9 tiles to 8 tiles because all of a sudden then everybody's scores change
Match
and you have to rebalance. And
Right.
I know you really want to match 2.
Match 2!
Well, and
Easiest game ever.
to stay with the Street Fighter
Yeah.
idea, if you added a new mechanic like super moves or parrying, then it's now a fundamentally different game. And that old game is still a valid game, but the new game with expanded mechanics is a different game, and
So yeah, it just depends on how much it's going to transform.
artistically belongs as a separate thing.
Right.
So there's that. So are we going to talk about the
So
components?
garbage collection can be an issue?
Yes. Okay, so garbage collection. So we destroy tiles when they blow up.
Which is a lot when you're
Actually,
playing a
specifically, every tile is an actor.
Yes.
We spawn them, which is a slow process, and then we destroy them, which requires garbage collection over time.
Yeah. So that's not that's like a deferred slow process. Like that's
Yes.
going to be slow later.
And it was every 60 seconds, which meant that garbage can basically was very, very full. and it took
Very
a lot
full
to
at
deal
that
with.
point, because if you're matching a lot of tiles, and you've unloaded the level twice,
Yeah.
because we were doing that. We were double loading. We were loading, destroying, and then reloading. So that means an entire grid of tiles, a character, a background, a camera, all that crap was destroyed and just sitting there waiting to be thrown away. And so every 60 seconds, we choke.
Yeah, you have a big hitch, which you don't want. It's
Nope.
just it was manageable enough to do it in chunks along the way, and waiting and then doing it all at once is a bad idea.
But we found it in the profiler. Actually, I believe me and Lauren sat down and was like, nope, there's a big spike. What is that big spike? Well, the profiling tools allow you to see, I mean, they're built right into Unreal. It's the session front end. They're built right in there where you can go in and see, oh, hey, what's this spike in my on my processor side?
Garbage
You
can.
go through and it's like, oh, garbage collection took 5 seconds? Why is garbage collection taking 5 seconds? And then you go through the documentation, I believe is what we actually ended up doing, and sure enough, we can change the frequency of garbage collection.
Right, so it happens much
Yep.
more frequently now, which means much smaller.
Yep.
Yes.
You only
Oh,
drop a
3
frame
minutes.
every 3 seconds or something like
Just
that.
give me
Yep.
Yeah, it's 3 minutes. I guess he's like telling us to go
So-
in.
no,
Another-
it's not
another-
that. I just know that you gotta
Another performance thing we found was that there were a couple of cases where our frame rate was dropping a little below where we wanted it to be, and these cases were generally they weren't bad cases. Like we had purposely designed this so that the bad cases would happen in times when the player can't do anything anyway, like
All the
when
particles,
when they're watching stuff blow up, because it doesn't affect gameplay. It's nowhere near the frustration of pushing a button when you should be able to do stuff and you can't. So we purposely engineered it that way, but we didn't want it to be a bad hitch. We didn't want to drop our frame rate. We just picked the best place for it to happen. So what we did was we went into our tiles. Where did we put our tiles?
They're in the blueprints.
Blueprints. Okay, so we went into our where's our
tiles? They're in the...
Sorry,
that's
there,
okay.
it's close enough. There's our gem. Right. Okay, or our tile, whatever. So we
drag it on over.
boop boop. Okay.
That's the sound effect for moving windows.
Yeah.
Go.
Well, everyone does that whenever they move anything into the thing.
Boop. Computers.
Yeah, so this used to have a scene component on it, and again, spawning was another place where things took a lot of time, and part of that is creating and registering all of your components.
So we're moving into
And,
mode.
and let's look at the gem also while we're here. Okay, yeah, so same thing here. So this has the renderable sprite and the box that is used for collision, so when you click on it, we know that you actually hit it. It used to have a scene component at the top, and then off of that were the render and the box. So basically, there are a lot of these on the screen, and there are a lot of these being spawned. By cutting it down to 2 components instead of 3, we've basically just cut a third off of the creation time, which is kind of a big deal. The only thing that was a little bit trouble is that we put the collision box under the render component.
So we had to do a little bit of math when we were scaling, but other than that,
Yeah.
it was a pretty easy way to save some time in the spawning.
Yep. The reason we did it that way before was that we could scale the sprite and it wouldn't affect the box. You put them at they were both children of the same thing. Having something be the child of something else means that its scale is inherited. So yeah, we just had to basically take whatever scale you're doing and
Undo it.
yeah, and just go down to the thing below it and divide it by and put 1 over it. Just do the reciprocal. It was pretty simple. It happened in a couple places in the code, so we made a little function for it, and it's clean, it's done, and now we don't have those spikes that drop below our target frame rate.
Awesome. Awesome. And I guess.
And there's 3.
Well, last thing we can knock out this one last thing is things you want to do in the future for it.
Yeah, we would definitely want to have an
There's 2
HTML5
notes.
build at some point.
HTML5 build.
Yeah, and then if you notice, there's a bunch of Flurry analytics events in there for when you open different menus, when you make different types of moves, and at some point want to look at that and do another post. Any posts we're gonna stack up mortem over?
We'll just call it like the final postmortem or something. It's its final form.
We also did a lot of things that were hey, we need to get this done now. Did you just make it work? Example, our themes. The 2 themes that we have, one of them is basically just a Boolean that exists. It makes it very difficult to decide what you should display when that thing isn't enabled. So there's a lot of double checking so I'm going back through and I'm changing the entire theme system so that it is a system.
So we can do more
and
themes?
not just a value.
So
So we can do more themes.
Oh, that'd be good.
Have an expandable theme. I mean, we have a data struct for themes that has like character, background, gems, all of that stuff. So we can swap everything out. It's just for whatever reason, oh, hey, we need to make sure this works. Well, we're just turning something on, right? That's a switch. Instead of having an array of values that you own, don't own, that we can iterate through very rapidly. And some of just those sections are like this long in Blueprint. It could be a loop about yay long, and so.
So things like that, but for like longer not behind the scenes bug fixing, I think the HTML5 build, and then I think the looking at the analytics and what that would mean if this was a game that we were trying to balance or tweak things about what we would learn from that.
Pooling. You gonna pool? No, not gonna pool. All right. Whatever.
All right.
I wouldn't mind talking about pooling.
Nah, we ain't got time.
Unfortunately, we have to go do that.
We didn't pool because there were different classes and it would have been a huge pain. We would have had a max size
This
pool
guy knows
of
what he's
all
doing.
the things at all times. We decided it wasn't worth it. In a lot of games, when something like your player dies in the first person shooter, you just make a new player. Okay, have fun programming Unreal, bye.
How can we?
And done.
All right, Ed, last quick question. Have you guys considered putting social media sharing buttons into it?
That sounds cool.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
All right, it's consideration for the future. All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming, seeing the stream. I have to go, they have to go. We all have a big thing to do. It's a meeting, so yay, fun. But please tune in next Tuesday, because it's going to be...
We'll be back.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, I've been on so many streams this
I'll
week.
be
like,
back.
I'm always on stream, so don't even give me this.
Yeah, I know, right? So Mieszko had to back out due to Paragon
Unfortunately,
stuff.
yeah.
So me and Lauren will be coming on and we'll be talking about achievements, leaderboards, and ads.
Oh my.
Using Match3 as a basis and show you guys how we did all that and how you have to set it up in Google Play and iOS and so forth and so on. So
Cool.
see you on Tuesday.
See you guys Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye again.